Okay, hello there, I'm McDonald from the Symbian Foundation, and I'm talking about the impact of the cloud on outsourcers. So it's a bit of a storm cloud there rather than a traditional cloud, but that's probably how half of you in the room are feeling about the cloud at the moment. So a bit of my background is my previous role was actually GM at New Zealand's, GM for a region at New Zealand's largest outsourcing company. I came over here last year, and Symbian Foundation was set up in 2009 to open source the Symbian platform, which is the platform for the phones. And as a startup, we built on the cloud. So we've got cloud file servers, cloud email, lots of software as a service, moving to cloud for most other servers that I did inherit, I'm getting rid of. And medium term is to have no servers on our premises or at our support partners. And I'm a large part of the way there right now. So just to give you an example here, some of the cloud tools that we've got there, and I'll just skip through these for the interest of time, but you can email me afterwards if you want the slides. And we're trying to set up a working environment where you can use whatever technology you like, whether it's open source, Ubuntu, Apple, Windows, whichever browser, whichever email client, whichever office productivity tools, and work from wherever. Just need an internet connection of some kind. So I want to talk a bit about the threat to outsourcers by illustrating a story. I was, as I said, GM at this outsourcer, and one of the customers that I was doing partly working with, but not my customer, was looking and sniffing around Google Apps, and they were looking at that. And I went to the CEO of a group. This group had 3,000 staff. And I says, look, I'm going to sign up as a Google reseller. I'm saying to my customers, look at this. And he said, no, you can't do this. This is going to damage our Microsoft business. It's going to hurt that too much. It's going to hurt our existing relationships. We're going to lose too much. I says, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to take a same margin on a small amount or lose it altogether? And he says, no, we're going to keep this. We're going to tell the customer that they need to stay with us, and this is why a hosted email server is so much better. So there was about £10 million worth of business. We're making roughly 20% margin, and we could have made this equivalent margin on Google, but you see on a lot less sales. And what did happen? This customer, by the way, owned 25% of the company. They own 25% of us. And that's why they said, no, they won't walk. They own a quarter of us. And they did walk. They went, and because we wouldn't sign it, they went to one of our opposition and they signed that thing. So we got 0% margin on £0. And we lost that. And that was that happened just after I'd left. And I actually found out on Tuesday that we'd lost another £20 million worth of business to them recently, because again, in this case, they said, no, we're staying with Microsoft, and the customer wanted to go open source for the web farms. We lost another 20 million. So, this is New Zealand's largest outsourcer losing £30 million worth of business that I know about, and this is a challenge facing you. And you can decide to fight the cloud, or you can decide to embrace it and get on board. So what is a cloud? To me, a cloud is utility pricing. You double your users, you double your price, you half your users, you half your price. Instantly scalable, almost infinitely scalable, accessible from anywhere, anytime. And there's a lot of confusion in the marketplace. What isn't a public cloud? There's a lot of people saying a traditional virtualization farm is a public cloud. No, it's not in most cases, because there is some that can be. Something that locks you in for years, something that has high initial costs, something that requires you to install on-site equipment. Try not to confuse the customer. They're confused enough as it is already. Get in there, decide that you're actually going to help us as a customer rather than trying to confuse us, because then you win all round. So as I'd say, as you start to work with customers like us on transitioning from service to cloud, ask what do you want to achieve. You need to look at, are you trying to achieve a service or a server, because it's two quite different approaches in the cloud. So if you're transitioning services, e.g. email or CRM, don't try and run your own Microsoft Exchange or Lotus Notes server in the cloud, because that's just sort of making it harder on yourself. All you're doing is keeping the same workload, but in fact making it harder. So buy a service like Google Apps, Microsoft BPOS, which is their email in the cloud, Salesforce, etc. And it's much simpler to run, and that's because you're charging per user. And this is where the customer gets large cost savings, or one of the areas that they get them. But the thing to note though is that there is less flexibility, so the customer does need to know that they're not going to, if they are huge on integration with the email server, you're going to lose some of that, but it's weighing up the costs and the benefits. Transitioning servers. Use virtualization as a first step to test things, because basically all these things like Amazon Web Services is a virtualization in the cloud. If you can't virtualize, you can't shift it into the cloud. But in another myth, you can link back into customers' network securely. So support issues, large customers, it can be hard to get, large companies, it can be hard to get service. Use services partners as they have direct relationships, or become one even better. Then you can pick up status pages on the web, RSS, Twitter. Often there are no SLAs, not always, but what really matters is uptime. So, and the uptime is often better in the cloud, but not always. What would your customer rather have, uptime or an SLA? So you may need to educate customers or provide a wrapping around SLA that you provide and take the risk. Okay, you've got data issues around data location. What is the law? What do staff and customers policies say? And that's a big one, the policies. You've got to look at security. But is that a bad thing? How many organisations actually lose their own data? Often the cloud can be better than that. They're not typically going to leave a part of the cloud on USB stick in the train. And redundancy can be very cost effective in the cloud as well. That we've certainly found that. It's a 10% extra charge rather than a 100% extra charge. Backup, can you get your customers' data out? Do data dumps to cheap storage. Remember, cloud firms can go under two. My golden rule is, if you can't get the data out, don't put your data in. In the direction of the cloud, basically you're seeing traditional services consolidate down into things like web-based services, web-based storage, and then I believe it's all going to consolidate into software as a service as time goes on. And Google's doing that. Microsoft have a similar long-term vision. They've actually rolled out a whole lot of things this week as well. So what do you need to do? Don't deny the change. Test out services such as Google Apps, Amazon EC2, and Microsoft BPOS. Start discussing it with your customers. Focus on the extra value add, and this is a key thing. Your services, your integration, your advice, rather than hardware and infrastructure, because basically what the cloud will do, the portion of the business that will wipe out is the hardware and the infrastructure. So the portion that you need to focus on is your services and your integration. And then, so turn that around and profit from the cloud. So keep in contact, and here's different ways to keep in contact with me if you want to ask questions, because I know I've sort of probably stirred up things a bit, and I'm starting to build a bit of a website on what different firms are doing, etc. as well. Thank you.